He built a $40 million penthouse overlooking Central Park. He thought no one could see what he was skimming off the top. But the math always catches up. In this city, you can manipulate numbers. You can move money across borders. You can convince investors you're a genius. But you cannot outsmart the scale. Because life keeps its own ledger. And one day, it audits you. In a glass tower facing Central Park lived a man named Daniel Mercer. Daniel was a hedge fund founder. Sharp suits, Ivy League degree, featured once in Forbes under 40 under 40. To the world, he was precision. To his investors, he was confidence. To himself, he was untouchable. Every morning at 5 a.m., Daniel stood in his marble kitchen, espresso in hand, staring at the skyline of New York City. He believed in one rule: if you don't take advantage, someone else will. So he did. Not dramatically, not criminally, at least not in ways that screamed scandal. Fractions of a penny here, a hidden fee there, a temporary liquidity adjustment buried in page 47 of a report no one read. 0.5%, then 1%. No one noticed. His investors were happy. Their returns were strong. And Daniel's penthouse grew more expensive each year. He told himself it was harmless. Everyone does it. It's just smart structuring. But greed rarely enters like a thief. It enters like a whisper. One autumn afternoon, Daniel hosted a private dinner in his penthouse. Tech founders, venture capitalists, a former senator, crystal glasses, rare Bordeaux, a chef flown in from Napa. Among the guests was an older man named Arthur Klein. Arthur wasn't flashy, no designer watch, no loud opinions. He managed a modest pension fund for retired public school teachers. Over dessert, Arthur smiled and said, "Daniel, I admire your growth. But tell me, how do you measure success?" Daniel laughed lightly. "Performance, assets under management, expansion." Arthur nodded. "And integrity?" Daniel's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course." Arthur didn't argue. He simply sipped his wine and looked out at the city lights. That night, after everyone left, Daniel stood alone in the silence. The question lingered longer than it should have. How do you measure success? He walked to his office, opened his laptop, and glanced at the internal fee structure. Just to check. The numbers stared back at him. Clean, legal, profitable. But suddenly, heavy. 3 months later, the market shifted. Nothing dramatic at first, just volatility. One of Daniel's leveraged positions, clever, aggressive, admired, moved against him. He adjusted. He rebalanced. He reassured investors on a conference call. "Temporary drawdown," he said calmly. But volatility compounds faster than confidence. Within weeks, redemption requests flooded in. Investors wanted liquidity. Pension funds wanted safety, including Arthur's teachers. Daniel opened the withdrawal reports. He did the math. Over 5 years, his minor adjustments had earned him an extra $12 million. $12 million that could have softened this moment. $12 million that had instead furnished Italian stone floors and a rooftop pool. The scale was rebalancing, not through lightning, not through scandal, through consequence. The real blow didn't come from regulators. It came from a letter. Arthur wrote it by hand. "Daniel, when I entrusted you with our teachers' savings, I believed you valued stewardship over scale. Returns matter, but character compounds longer. I hope you remember that. No accusations, no threats, just disappointment. Daniel read the letter 3 times. For the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He felt small. He opened the internal breakdown again. 0.5%, then 1%. He imagined a retired math teacher in Ohio postponing travel, a widowed librarian recalculating her monthly expenses. He had never stolen from a face, only from a spreadsheet, and that made it easier. Until now. The fund survived. Barely. But something inside Daniel didn't. One evening, he stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The city pulsed beneath him. Ambulances, taxis, lives intersecting. He realized something uncomfortable. The penthouse wasn't proof of intelligence. It was proof of extraction. He thought about the invisible scale Arthur implied. You can manipulate quarterly statements. You can spin narratives. But you cannot manipulate the long arc of reputation. Because in finance, as in life, trust is leverage. And once it cracks, the compounding reverses. The next board meeting shocked everyone. Daniel proposed a full-fee restructuring, lower management fees, transparent reporting, a voluntary reimbursement pool drawn from executive bonuses, including his own. Silence filled the room. "Why?" one partner asked. Daniel answered simply, "Because we're being measured. Not by the SEC, not by Forbes, by the same scale we use on others." It wasn't heroic. It was corrective. Arthur's pension fund didn't immediately return. But a year later, when performance stabilized, they did. Not because Daniel was the most aggressive manager, but because he became the most transparent. Tonight, I want you to think about your own scale. Maybe you don't manage billions. Maybe you don't live above Central Park. But you measure something. Your time, your promises, your effort. Where are you shaving off 0.5%? Where are you telling yourself no one will notice? Because life notices. Not in dramatic ways, not always immediately, but precisely. The universe doesn't punish, it balances. Daniel learned that wealth without integrity is just leverage without collateral. It looks powerful until the margin call arrives. If this story made you pause, comment below. Where in your life are you being measured right now? And if you're ready to build something that compounds beyond money, trust, character, legacy, subscribe to Tales in Life. Because in the end, we are all standing on a scale we cannot see, and it always returns to us, down to the last decimal, exactly what we put on it.